and welcome back to another Mystery Monday video on my channel. I have absolutely nothing to say, so let's get right into the video. Paige Renkoski was born on February 2nd, 1960 to her parents Carl and Artis Renkoski in Lansing, Michigan. Paige, as you can see, was an absolutely beautiful woman, but she was also described as being super sweet, really nice, and by friends and family just said that she really radiated happiness and light and everything good. She had a great personality. She was hilarious. She loved to make others laugh, and she was always remembered by people who came across her path, not only for her striking beauty, but also for her amazing personality. On May 24th, 1990, Paige left her home in Okemos, Michigan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I seem to not say things right often. I don't know if I have an accent or if I really just can't pronounce words, but Okemos, Michigan. I looked that up and I'm pretty sure that's how it is pronounced. But she lived there and she left there on May 24th, 1990 to drive her mother to the airport. She dropped her mother off at the airport at around 11:30 and then headed to her friend's house in Canton, Michigan. The visit with this friend was really chill. They didn't really do much. They hung out at the friend's house for a bit, then they went for a walk, they hung out at a park, and then they returned back to this friend's home. Between 2:30 and 2:45, Paige had left her friend's house and was now at a party store on Ford Road in Canton, Michigan, just west of Interstate 275. While in the party store, Paige purchased one single beer before heading to I-96 towards her home. Just hours after this purchase at the party store, Paige Renkoski's vehicle was found abandoned along I-96 near Fowlerville, Michigan. The strange thing to me about all of this is when Paige's vehicle was discovered, not only were her keys still in the ignition, but the engine was still running, as if Paige was planning on just jumping back into her vehicle and driving away. Inside her vehicle, along with her keys, were the shoes that she had last been seen wearing, along with her purse, a few other personal belongings, and that one beer that I said that she bought just hours before at the party store. It came out later that multiple people had seen Paige pull off to the shoulder of I-96, and that interstate is said to be very, very busy. I don't know personally because I've never been there, but after reading about it online, this interstate seems to have a lot of traffic, especially at the time of day that it was. A lot of people would have been driving down that road, and Paige was seen pulling over, and it is said that when she pulled over, there was a kind of old beat up maroon minivan that pulled over alongside her vehicle, and the man that she was seen talking to who had gotten out of this vehicle was described as being of African American descent. Now, in some of these witness reports, people had only spotted Paige speaking to one man, but there actually was reported to be a second man at the scene who was also speaking to Paige, and because of that, we are more inclined to believe that there were two men inside of this vehicle when they had somehow managed to get Paige to pull over. The second man on the scene could have not been seen by drivers for multiple reasons. Maybe he was standing behind the vehicle in an area that couldn't be spotted from the road. Maybe at the time that these people had driven by, maybe he was in the car doing something. Maybe he was in the seat and the seat was laying down. There's just multiple reasons as to why the second man could have not been seen by some people, which is why we are more inclined to believe that there was actually two people at the scene. And most of these eyewitness accounts, people who saw Paige at the side of the road, were all reported to have seen her between the times of 3:15 p.m. and 4:15 p.m. This seems really odd to me because of the way Paige's car was found with the keys still in the ignition and the engine still running. But when police originally found her car abandoned on the side of the road, they had no reason to believe that a crime had taken place, so her vehicle wasn't treated as a crime scene originally. When Paige was reported missing, that is when investigators started to put pieces of the puzzle together. They weren't originally called to the scene until 6:30 p.m., and that is when they discovered Paige's vehicle parked at the side of the road, just idling as if somebody was about to get in and drive away. But besides that, they said that nothing really seemed to suggest that a crime had taken place in that area. Once they did begin to investigate Paige's vehicle, they were able to find multiple prints as well as DNA samples that did not match Paige's DNA or prints. But as far as public knowledge goes, I do not believe that a match has ever been made for any of the prints or DNA that was found inside of Paige's vehicle. A few people had came forward to police after Paige was reported missing, saying that they had seen her driving on I-96 the day that she vanished, and she was weaving in and out of traffic, and this maroon-colored vehicle was tailing her. Other reports from people who had been driving down I-96 that day said that they seen Paige speaking to one of the two of these men and that she was gesturing with her hands in the air. And some of these other reports said that they had seen this man put his hands on Paige's shoulder as well as her elbow, and they kind of seemed to have been guiding her somewhere, most likely their vehicle. 6 months after Paige vanished, a letter came into investigators that had a map inside of it, and it was sent in a blank envelope. Now, I had a lot of trouble trying to find this letter online. I did find it on one website, but when I tried to click it, the link would completely go away and it would say error, and there was no way to zoom in or see the letter really well. But after I'm done filming this video, I'm going to try and find it again, and if I do, I will link it in the description box down below. But basically, the letter said this, and I'm going to be looking down because I'm going to be reading what exactly the letter said. The letter says, "The information may be red herring, but it is shared to do with as you see fit." And then it says that the map is supposedly the route that was taken by Paige's abductors. Whoever wrote this letter remained anonymous and still remains anonymous to this day, and no more information about this letter has ever come out. In 2011, investigators came out and said that this area was searched, but it was unsuccessful. This part of the case really confuses me because it says that the dogs that they used to search this area were not trained to search for human remains. And that seems very odd to me in a missing persons case for somebody who has been missing for such a long time. It seems to me that you would want to use dogs that were experienced in this field, but they didn't. Authorities also said that it is very possible that they searched the completely wrong area because they weren't sure if they were reading the map correctly. Something that I should have mentioned earlier on in this case, but I forgot, and so I'm going to be mentioning it now, is a lot of the information in this case is really all over the place. It's really confusing and hard to tell the difference between what is fact and what is just a theory or speculation. So I'm coming at a lot of the information in this video from a speculation point of view, just because this case is so large that it's hard to tell if people are just speculating what they think and what is confirmed and what is not, because of how popular and how huge this case is. At the time of Paige's disappearance, she had absolutely everything to live for. She was engaged and was planning on being married in the near future. She had and still has to this day a very strong and supportive family dynamic. She was really happy in her life and had no signs or history of any kind of mental health issues. So her wanting to run away for whatever reason has been almost completely ruled out. So that is not even a theory in this case. Obviously, the main theory in this case is that the two men that Paige was seen talking to on the side of the interstate did abduct her. And at the time of Paige's abduction, she did have a large lump sum of money in her bank account that I don't believe has ever been touched, meaning that robbery was not the motive. Somehow these two men seen Paige and they got into their mind that they wanted to abduct her. And somehow they convinced her to pull over onto the side of the road and then convinced her to get into their vehicle. And the reason that I say that I think they convinced her to get into their vehicle is because, like I said earlier, I-96 is a very busy highway. It's a very busy road with people driving down it constantly. So I think that if they had forced her into the vehicle or she showed some kind of struggle, that somebody would have reported seeing that. Somebody would have pulled over to the side of the road, somebody would have called the police, or at least I hope somebody would have. But you would think that with how old this case is now, that kind of information would have came out by now. In 1989, a woman was driving down I-96 when her vehicle broke down. She felt lucky because she was picked up by a truck driver who was going to drive her to the nearest gas station to get some help. But then this man told her that she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Now, I'm not really sure of the full series of events that took place at this time, but the woman luckily had a gun on her, so she threatened the man with this and she was able to get free and be able to go to police with this information. Now, they did eventually find this man because his DNA was tested against the DNA that was found inside of Paige's vehicle, but the tests came back inconclusive. My problem with this how would have these two men convinced Paige to pull over onto the side of the road, let alone get into the vehicle with them? The woman who had been picked up by this man had already been parked at the side of the road. Her vehicle had broken down and she was in need of help. But in this case, Paige's car was in fine condition and she didn't need to pull over. So how would these men get her to pull over and then get her into their car? In 1990, another woman was driving down I-94 when a man driving an older vehicle that was kind of beat up flashed her a police badge in an attempt to get her to pull over. Now, this man was described as being either of African American descent or Hispanic. But something in this woman's gut instinct told her to not pull over, and she later reported this encounter to police. But this man has never been identified or caught. Now, this incident brings me to the first theory in this case that I'm going to talk about, and maybe the two men that got Paige to pull over did so by impersonating a police officer. Now, a lot of people really trust police officers. You know, they're there to protect you and to help you, but you have to be careful because some people use that power or pretend that they are police officers to do things that are illegal, that are harmful to you. They use this power just to hurt you, so maybe Paige fell victim to that. The second theory that I'm going to talk about is one that I find very interesting, and that is that maybe this was a staged accident. Now, when Paige's vehicle was discovered, she had a very, very minor dent in the front bumper. And by very minor, I mean she could have just hit a curb, she could have hit another car. It was really minor, it was nothing to worry about, and there is no way to confirm whether she had this bump in her bumper before this had taken place or after her disappearance had taken place. But some people think that maybe these two men had staged an accident. Maybe they slowed down just enough or stopped completely so that Paige would hit their car slightly. This would be a good way to convince Paige to pull over. This would also be a good way to get her to come over to their vehicle. Maybe they wanted to change, or they said they wanted to exchange insurance information. You know, this would be a very good theory as to how they got her to pull over as well as how they got her into their vehicle. Another theory in this case is that maybe Paige knew her abductors. Maybe she knew them and she's seen them driving down the highway, and maybe that's why they were tailing her, and maybe that's how they convinced her to so easily pull over to the side of the road. Now, my only problem with this is if she knew them, maybe, you know, usually when you're driving on the road or you're going somewhere, you know, you see somebody you know, you wave at them, maybe you roll down your window and exchange a few words, but I don't think that you'd necessarily pull over to the side of the road. And if that was the case, how did they manage to get her into their vehicle without showing any signs of a struggle to passers-by? Especially because Paige's vehicle was, again, left running with the engine on. So she obviously wasn't planning on going anywhere with these two men. It seems that this was really just like she was forced. She wasn't planning on leaving. Somehow they'd gotten her into the vehicle and drove away. So in this scenario, I just don't see how that's possible, but it is a widely talked about theory online. This next theory and the last theory that I'm going to talk about in this case is one that I came across on Web Sleuths, and it really caught my eye. And that is that maybe Paige had interacted with these two men either inside of the party store or in the party store's parking lot. Paige again was absolutely strikingly beautiful, and although she was engaged, her mother said that she often came across flirtatious, even when she had no interest in this person. But because she was so nice and just a generally sweet person, a lot of people took this as her flirting or coming on to them. Maybe she'd somehow encountered these two men at the party store or again in the party store's parking lot, and maybe they thought that she was coming on to them, so they made an advance or they asked her out or something like that, and she declined, and maybe that angered these two men. But again, that leaves me with the question of how did they manage to get Paige to pull over, and how did they get her in their vehicle without some kind of attention being drawn to them, without her putting up a fight, without, you know, how did they manage to get from point A to point B in this situation? But for some reason, this theory just really interested me and it stood out to me a lot, and it was one that I think about quite often in this case. Now, another bit of information that I thought I'd just throw in here, but again, can't be confirmed, but is speculated on Web Sleuths. It's talked about quite a lot. In 2002, it is said that one of Paige's abductors was actually identified. Now, the second man still remains unidentified, but neither of these two men have been arrested because they are both believed to be deceased. And that actually isn't the first time that I've seen this while researching this case. I've seen multiple times that investigators would get a solid suspect in this case, and they would find enough evidence to consider somebody a solid suspect, and then they would just pass away. Now, I'm not sure if that's because of old age or what, but I really don't understand that. Like, what? I don't know if this is a confirmed fact. I don't know how to confirm this. That's just something that I read multiple times online while researching this case, so it is what it is. Sadly, today this case has gone almost completely cold, but because of the strange circumstances and because this case seems like one that should be solved, many people investigate this case a lot in their own time. Many people spend a lot of time really looking into this case and trying to find what happened to Paige. So hopefully because of this, Paige's family and friends can get some answers for what happened to her on that day very soon. Foul play is suspected in this case, and unfortunately, Paige is presumed to be deceased. I don't understand how that interstate is so busy. Somebody more than likely saw Paige get into that vehicle that day. Somebody more than likely saw Paige being forced into that vehicle that day. So my question is, why did nobody call the police? Why did nobody pull over to the side of the road and try to stop this? Now, that is why I really think this case is so strange. How did she end up inside of their vehicle when she obviously wasn't planning on going anywhere? Her car was still running, her doors were all unlocked, her keys were in the ignition. How did she end up inside of their vehicle with them somehow overpowering her without anybody seeing anything? My heart sincerely goes out to Paige's loved ones, and I really hope that somebody comes forward with some information that can close this case for good very, very soon. And just a reminder to all of you guys watching this, if you ever see something strange going on where you think that somebody is in danger or something is wrong, no matter what, you should always call the police. Always. Because there's so many times when you could prevent something like this happening. But guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you Friday. Bye guys!